Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're breaking down a genuinely fascinating piece of analysis by researcher Oluyomi Oladavid. Her work completely flips our traditional understanding of economics and national development right on its head. Usually when we think of good governance, we're picturing parliaments, presidents, maybe international treaties. But she challenges that whole macro-level perspective. Her research actually asks us to look much, much closer to home. Literally. To understand a nation's true economic potential, she argues we've got to examine the governance happening right inside our very own households. Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to really think about the question we're asking today. Is your household governed fairly? Now, it feels almost a little strange to use a rigid political word like governed when we're just talking about family life, right? Usually we reserve terms like inclusive, sustainable, or accountable governance for the national level. But her research challenges that exact assumption. She wants us to consider if this high-level international concept of good governance actually belongs right there in your living room or sitting at your kitchen table.
To really understand her argument, we first need to look at the macro status quo. You see, international organizations and developing country governments heavily focus on 8 fundamental parameters of good governance. We're talking about things like the rule of law, transparency, responsiveness, consensus orientation, equity and inclusiveness, effectiveness and efficiency, accountability and participation. According to her analysis, several African governments are just desperately trying to perform better on these specific metrics. And why? Well, because hitting these targets improves their international outlook. It makes them way more attractive for foreign aid, it draws in foreign investments, and it garners crucial institutional support for sustainable development initiatives. So this is the big picture that everyone is intensely focused on.
Now, this macro focus builds directly into her core thesis. At the global level, there has been this massive collective action by global governance institutions to promote equality. And hey, it's worked, to an extent. We've seen increased female school enrollment and completion rates, we're seeing way higher female labor market participation, and consequently, we've seen the rise of the dual-earner household model. Both adults are out there working. On paper, to international observers looking from the top down, this creates a seemingly progressive dynamic. It looks like a massive win for equality and economic development. But she identifies a massive blind spot here. There is a severely limited focus on what's actually happening at the micro level, inside the traditional household unit once everyone actually gets home from work.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the contrast when we zoom in on the micro-reality. She introduces what she calls the household pivot. If you look at the traditional household model, the adult male head is engaged in paid employment to cater to the household's needs, while the female provides care and unpaid duties. Contrast that with the dual-earner household. Both adults are in paid employment. They're both out there working in the formal economy. But, and this is her absolutely critical observation, the division of unpaid household work remains entirely skewed. The female still bears the disproportionate share of care and unpaid duties. She specifically notes her observations on the average Nigerian household, pointing out that it is still very much pervaded by patriarchal perspectives. That means the modern dual-earner model violently clashes with traditional expectations. And the result of this clash? It's just exhausting. Working women are out there juggling the rigorous demands of formal jobs with the lion's share of unpaid domestic production duties. Basically, the traditional household model has been replaced by the dual-earner model, but the traditional division of labor? It hasn't budged an inch. So working mothers are essentially working 2 full-time jobs, one that pays and that infamous second shift that doesn't. Anyone who has ever come home from an 8-hour workday only to immediately start cooking, cleaning, and managing childcare knows exactly the kind of burnout she is talking about.
So the crucial point is this powerful concept she introduces called time poverty. This is the deprivation of a highly valuable resource, time, needed for investment in human and social capital development. Because working women and school-age girls are saddled with these disproportionate household duties, they become severely time poor compared to their male counterparts. Time isn't just a luxury, guys. It is a literal economic resource. When you are deprived of it, you can't invest in yourself, you can't rest, and you can't develop social capital. Her argument makes it crystal clear that this directly impacts the overall well-being of the household and ultimately drags down the inclusiveness of the entire nation's economic growth.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world fallout of the problem. Time poverty isn't just about feeling tired. The tangible damage she identifies is severe. It stifles human and social capital development. It negatively impacts overall household well-being. It actively perpetuates stereotypical male dominance because the cycle just never breaks. And then there's this final point.
This is a truly staggering insight from her research. She links household chores directly to deficits in girls' enrollment in STEM fields. Think about it. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, they require immense time and study. If school-age girls are forced to spend their after-school hours doing unpaid household labor, while boys have the free time to study, those girls are systematically locked out of these high-level, high-paying career paths.
Let's take a quick moment to put the spotlight directly on the author of this groundbreaking thesis, Oluyomi Oladavid. As she puts it, her research seeks to project the relevance of government structures at the household level. She wrote these insights to outline her upcoming fellowship research because she noticed a glaring gap in the academic literature. While there's plenty of evidence from developed countries regarding time allocation in families and its macroeconomic effects, she notes that the dearth of studies on equity and inclusiveness in African household governance leaves much to be desired. So she is stepping right up to fill that void.
So how do we actually fix this? Well, she firmly believes we need a complete paradigm shift. First off, we must acknowledge informal institutions. We can't just look at international aid and trade flows, we have to look at culture and norms, because these non-economic factors can completely derail national development. Next, we have to promote equity in the traditional household unit itself. By doing this, she hopes her findings can actually influence public policy, basically waking leaders up to the reality that a nation's GDP relies heavily on the invisible, unpaid labor of its women. Ultimately, she asserts that implementing inclusive governance at this micro level is the absolute secret to raising national productivity and achieving true, sustainable development.
We're going to end today's explainer by echoing her exact closing question to her readers. What do you think? It is a pretty provocative thought to leave you with. Take a look at the division of labor in your own home. Are the fundamental parameters of good governance, equity, inclusiveness, participation, are they present in your living room? Because as she has so brilliantly shown us today, true national growth doesn't just start in the halls of government, it starts with who is washing the dishes. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking great questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.